Hello and welcome to the new student orientation Navigating Financial Aid presentation for orientation here at the University of Chicago for the 2021-2022 academic year. Our program overview will include the services that are provided through our financial aid office, financial aid at the University of Chicago, specifically our No Barriers and Empower program, what forms are required, how we calculate your financial aid, type of aid that's available, maintaining and renewing your aid, and of course, who can assist you if you have questions. The Financial Aid Office at the University of Chicago's mission is to make education here as affordable and accessible as possible. We commit to meet 100% of a family's demonstrated financial need. And what that means is after the family contribution and small student work expectation, the remaining amount of need is met with grant from the university. The services that our office provides is administration of federal, state, and institutional aid eligibility, application assistance, reviewing of special circumstances, and assisting students and families with any questions that they might have. Our No Barriers program is a comprehensive program designed to increase access to college, not just the education itself, but all things therein. So funded opportunities like internships, externships, study abroad, no application fees are ever associated with our university if you're applying for financial aid, and of course lifelong career support. Don't just think of yourself as obtaining an education from the university, but also access to the alumni network and all the connections you're going to make while you're here. The University of Chicago is a name that's going to open doors for you in the future. Our Empower initiative provides free tuition for families who make under $125,000 a year with typical assets, and free tuition, fees, room and board for families that make less than $60,000 a year with typical assets. These are not hard cutoffs, so if your family makes more than $60,000 or more than $125,000, you can still qualify for rather robust financial aid. It does decrease on a sliding scale the more that income decreases, but please, even if you think you make too much, still apply for financial aid. Of course, the most popular question we always have is, what is considered typical assets? And we consider typical assets things that are like checking, savings, a small amount of a stock portfolio, a 529 plan, and so on. The better question is what do we consider atypical or non-typical assets? And those are things like a second home, rental properties, large stock portfolios, business value, essentially anything that you can generate liquid value in a short amount of time or borrow against. We never consider the value of a student-parent home or retirement plan, much like the FAFSA application. So if you were worried that we would look at the equity in your primary house or what you have saved for retirement, we do not consider that when calculating financial aid. Students who are first in their family to attend college do receive a $20,000 scholarship, and that's applied across all 4 years, so $5,000 per year. And if you have questions about that, more information is available via our admissions office. So some very brief basics before we delve into the actual meat and potatoes of the presentation. But the main sources of financial aid here are merit and need-based aid, with need-based aid being the primary source of aid that all students are awarded, if eligible. Merit funds are based off of academic performance, grade point average, things of that nature, and those are awarded via our admissions office. For domestic applicants, we are need blind, meaning if you're a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen, we do not take into families' consideration how much they may have in the way of income when admitting them into the institution. So that is a benefit of being a domestic applicant. And of course, you do need to reapply for every year. So even if you are a fully funded student, you do need to reapply for aid for all subsequent years. The forms that we require, first and foremost, is the FAFSA application, the free application for federal student aid, and that is used to determine federal aid eligibility. It is made up of a process called federal methodology that establishes something called an EFC, or expected family contribution, not what you have to pay, just a number on a scale from 0 to all 9s, and that helps us, again, determine what you might get in the way of aid from the federal or state government if you're an Illinois resident. It does use prior year income information, meaning taxes from 2 years previously. So for the 2021-2022 academic year, we will be looking at 2019 information. If you're only eligible or interested in applying for federal financial aid, all you need to do is complete a FAFSA application. And this application becomes available on October 1st of each year. So for the students that are going to be starting next year, your application was available on October 1st of 2020, and renewing this application, the new application, will be available on October 1st of 2021. The required forms that are here at the university, of course, is our University of Chicago Financial Aid Worksheet. This is available in your admissions portal, and as a result of our No Barriers program, it has no application fee associated with it. This application calculates a family contribution using institutional methodology, meaning that we will look at the family tax information and take a little bit deeper dive than the FAFSA does. Provided the family tax information is very simple, both parents or one parent is earning just through standard W-2 earnings, does not have anything that's generating a lot of passive income, the federal and institutional contributions generally run hand in hand. We also ask for prior year income information, along with current household information, so also asking for the 2019 taxes. And we will accept a CSS profile if you want to complete that. That is a College Board product, but it does have an application fee associated with it, thus our application being free. If a student or parent is worried that you filled out a CSS or you filled out ours and you're thinking, will this hurt or help my chances? Any student filling either of these applications is going to receive the same aid consideration. One app does not result in more aid over the other. And of course, we require tax information. So for the 2021-2022 academic year, we will be looking at parent 2019 tax and W-2 information. Some students will be selected for additional documentation, namely FAFSA verification. That is a process where the federal government requests that colleges and universities double-check the app to make sure it was completed correctly. Doesn't mean they think you did anything wrong on it. It's just a quality control measure. If students are selected for additional documentation, our office will, of course, reach out and let you know what you need to provide to us. So how we calculate your award. The financial aid award has a few components associated with it. Our cost of attendance, what it costs to go to the university, the family contribution, how much a student and parent may be expected to contribute, and a self-help or work expectation, work that can be done while the student is attending. Cost of attendance is made up of two kinds of costs, direct and indirect cost. A direct cost is something that you have to pay directly to the university. So tuition, fees, room and board when you're on campus. Indirect costs are things that you might pay. Books, supplies, transportation, personal expenses, and so on, and room and board when you're off campus, not billable by the university. This total cost of attendance equates to around $84,000 per year. Then we subtract out the family contribution. That's either the EFC or institutional calculation, and then a small self-help or work expectation from the students. The remaining amount is what we give in the way of need-based financial aid. So as stated previously, our cost of attendance for next year for first-year students is $84,126. And while that can seem like a very daunting number, if you have a very, very low or zero family contribution, almost all of your direct costs will be met with need-based financial aid. So the way that we determine our aid is we take your cost of attendance, subtract out the parent contribution, subtract out the student contribution, if any, and generally for most students it's going to be zero, and then a self-help or work expectation. And the remaining amount left over is need, and that's what we fill with need-based financial aid. Either federal or state aid if you're receiving it from the state or federal government, and our institutional aid. Now, as tax information can change from year to year, the family contribution can change from year to year. But if family taxes are relatively consistent from one year to the other, as well as household size, the awards that you're going to receive over the course of your time here is going to be very stable as well. Additionally, if you're an Empower student and have that locked in full tuition coverage or full tuition fee room and board coverage, that will be locked in for all 4 years. So if in a second or third year your family receives a windfall lottery winning or parents receive a very large raise, if you are locked in as a full tuition coverage student, it will always be covered. So what do we fill up that need with? Well, the kind of grants and scholarships that you can receive, namely, are federal and state grants, mostly widely known as Pell and SEOG for federal aid recipients. MAP, if you're an Illinois student, has the Monetary Award Program, and that is maintained by the state grant agency. And these are automatically applied if you are eligible. There's no secondary applications you need to complete. We determine the eligibility, and if you're going to receive it, we will award it. Our institutional grants and scholarships, of course, can include the university grant, our Odyssey scholarship, and perhaps some merit funding if you're awarded that via the admissions office. And then, of course, scholarships from outside agencies. National merit recipients and any other kind of outside awards are applied onto your account. We do encourage students and parents to look for third-party grants and scholarships. So if you are a member of a religious, a fraternal organization, if your parents are a member of a union, check with their employer. Any kind of additional funding that you can get now is less the dollars that you may have to pay later on in the form of making use of a student loan or having to set up a payment plan. All these funds are, of course, applied directly to a student account once we do receive the funding. Federal funds and our institutional funding are generally pre-applied before the start of the school year or the start of terms, so you don't have to do anything special to have that applied. Institutional scholarships, of course, are also applied before the start. You don't have to do anything for that. And any kind of outside agency we apply once the payment's received. So student employment. Students do have to find a job on campus if they are interested in working. We do not have a dedicated work-study office that assigns positions to students, so we do leave it up to you to find your position. If you are eligible for federal work-study, it will be noted on your award letter. As it's stated here, there are two types of employment, federal work-study and just standard student employment. Federal work-study is based off of federal need. So if you have any federal need, we would award you federal work-study. How much a work-study student makes as opposed to a standard student employee is identical. It's just what budget it's being paid out of on the employer side. Namely, for federal work-study, the government covers 75 cents on the dollar for the employer, so they want work-study students. So if you do have work-study, you will probably receive a little bit better selection of jobs. If you do have work-study, you will need to provide an eligibility form, which will be available through your My U Chicago portal, demonstrating to your potential employer that you do have work-study eligibility. Both kinds of employment are paid via a biweekly paycheck to the student. You can set up direct deposit if you wish to do so. One is helpful to make sure that anything that you're earning via student employment goes into a checking or savings account. And two, if you do receive any kind of financial aid refund where we're providing you more financial aid or you're receiving additional financial aid from outside sources after your direct charges are taken care of, it can be refunded to you as well. So when you are going to be a student employee, keep in mind you might need to provide some kind of documentation. Namely, you'll be filling out a W-4 for withholding, but you'll also need appropriate work authorization documents, I-9, an original Social Security card. That is very much worth highlighting. For any student that is going to be traveling from out of state, if your parents or you have your work study in mind and you have a Social Security card, do get it and bring it with you. You can start working for a very brief amount of time, but they eventually will require photo ID and your original Social Security card. So please do not think a copy is going to be acceptable. When it comes time to be hired on, you will have to provide that original Social Security card. More information about student employment, of course, can be found at our studentemployment.uchicago.edu website. You would want to click on I'm an undergraduate, and then it'll bring you to the UChicago handoff for work search. If students are interested in making use of student loans, there are a few steps that do need to be taken. Namely, if you're interested in making use of a Stafford student loan, you will need to complete some paperwork, which we'll talk to you about in a moment. And if parents are interested in making use of a parent student loan, they would want to complete that online on the studentaid.gov website. Students and parents may also want to borrow a private loan. These application processes can vary by lender to lender. These loans are credit-based, meaning that if you are a student, you may require a co-signer. But if you're going to be borrowing anything in the way of any student loans, we usually recommend Stafford loans first, then Parent Plus loans, then private loans. Federal direct loans are both subsidized and unsubsidized. Subsidized means that it is interest-free while you are attending. This is based off of federal need, and if you are interested in borrowing a Stafford loan, we will always try to award subsidized funds first. There are 3 steps required to receiving a federal loan. One is submitting our loan request form, which is available on our website, that lets us know that you want to borrow a Stafford loan. 2, complete the master promissory note, and what that is that is an agreement between yourself and the federal government at student loans or studentaid.gov. And then 3, if you're a first-time borrower, you do need to complete the loan entrance counseling. And what that is that's a quiz for the loan, so you know what your rights and responsibilities are when you're both borrowing and when you enter repayment. Funds are dispersed directly onto the student's account via electronic fund transfer. So these funds are sent to us via the federal government, via EFT. There's no checks or anything else that needs to be done. As long as you've completed your loan request and we've awarded it, it should go onto your account. For parents, you can also borrow a Parent Plus loan, and that is a parent loan for undergraduate students. It is a federal loan as well that you can also complete on student loans or studentaid.gov. It is credit-based. It's a little bit different than the Stafford loan. Your loan as a student, for students watching, you're guaranteed to get it no matter what. For parents, it does have a credit component to it, but it is a simple credit check. It's just making sure everything in your credit is in good standing. So despite what you may have in the way of a mortgage, car payment, credit cards, as long as you're up to date on everything, you'll probably be approved. That can be borrowed up to the total remaining cost of attendance, i.e. anything left to be paid out of pocket and additional funding to cover the indirect expenses like books, supplies, and off-campus residency if the student is off-campus. Again, these funds are dispersed directly onto the student's account, no checks, nothing else is needed, and any kind of aid overage would be refunded back to either the student or you as the borrower if you just said to say so. Again, private loans, it can vary by lender. We do encourage you to speak with financial aid staff if you're interested in borrowing private specifically, but any other loan, just to go over your options. We do want to make sure students and parents don't overborrow if it can be avoided, and only borrow what you think you might need. So the billing process at the university results in the bursar's office applying all of your direct charges to your student's account, so the tuition, fees, room, and board, then all of the resources, in this instance, financial aid, grants, loans, scholarships, 529 payments if you have those, and any kind of aid overage is then refunded back to the student or parent if it is a Parent Plus loan. It is billed per term, so this is not a yearly billing amount. It is billed every term, every autumn, winter, and spring. So please do not think that you have to pay everything up front. Much like enrollment is per term, billing is per term as well. So there are some steps that you need to take to maintain your aid eligibility. Namely, students must remain enrolled as a full-time student, 300 units or more, so 3 courses or more, to retain that aid eligibility every term. Any student that's going to be dropping below full-time enrollment should see their academic advisor and speak with financial aid. There does come a point in the term where even if you drop courses, you're still billed for full-time, so you would retain full-time financial aid. So again, if you're worried, thinking of dropping a class or might need to drop a class, do speak with your academic advisor and our department. Students must also maintain something called SAP, or Satisfactory Academic Progress, meaning you need to complete 70% of the units in which you enroll, so 7 out of every 10 classes. You got to maintain a minimum grade point average of 2.0, or good academic standing, and you need to complete your program within 150% of the length of the program, i.e., if you're looking for a 4-year degree, you got to get it done in at least 6 years. If you fail to meet any of these, you may be subject to financial aid suspension. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to take away your aid permanently. What will end up happening is we will send you a notice notifying you that you are potentially in danger of losing your aid eligibility, what metric you did not meet, and then allow you to appeal. We do understand that college can be very rigorous. You may be spreading yourself very thin with extracurriculars and additional coursework, and if you're not doing the best, we don't want you to lose out on your aid eligibility. So renewing your financial aid, you do need to renew it every year. The first step being completing the FAFSA. So for first-year students that are watching this, your new FAFSA application for your second year will be available on October 1st of 2021. The second thing you need to do is submit all required documentation, namely tax information and our institutional aid application. That will be submitted generally in spring of 2022. And then you will receive your financial aid award as a returner in late July of 2022. So for anyone watching this that's a new student, you obviously received your financial aid determination either when you were admitted or very shortly thereafter. Returning students do receive it a little bit later on. So you will receive an email late in the fall with instructions about deadlines, what kind of documentation we're going to be requesting. And for the 2023 academic year, the next year, we'll be requiring, of course, a FAFSA, our institutional application, and your Parent 2020 information. Again, additional documentation may be requested, either via verification. We might require proof of citizenship, other sorts of documentation to help us complete your award. Again, aid eligibility is reevaluated every year, so you must reapply, and of course we will be notifying you. Primary communication once you're enrolled into the institution is going to be to the student directly. So students, if you're thinking of having your parents help or assist with any of this stuff, please keep in mind that we will be sending most of the correspondence to you directly. If family resources and household information remain consistent from year to year, the aid award will also remain very consistent from year to year. So as long as there's not very large fluctuations in pay one way or the other, household sizes change one way or the other, or college size changes, the aid determination that you're going to get is relatively consistent. If parents decrease earnings or you have additional siblings joining college, that may actually result in some increased aid eligibility. Likewise, if your parents do receive large raises and an older sibling graduates from college and moves out, that could result in your aid eligibility decreasing. But if you do have any questions about how these changes may impact your aid for subsequent years, please do reach out to our office. We do make special considerations while you're here at the university in regards to your financial aid. Namely, third and fourth year students do have the option to move off campus. If you move off campus, room and board does get changed because it becomes an indirect cost. So we do reduce that amount in your budget a little bit. What that results in is a slight decrease in your aid. However, the amount that you're going to be charged by the university goes down dramatically. So if you are in an instance where you're receiving generally full funding, while your aid eligibility may decrease a little bit, any of that aid that's left over that's not paying towards your bill would get refunded to you, and you can use that to cover your off-campus living expenses. For students that are doing study abroad, we may adjust budgets based on the program, i.e. increase your budget a little bit if you are going to be going to a more expensive program than had you remained on campus. And if you're receiving need-based aid, your work expectation could be replaced. And if you're going to be flying, students are provided a $1,200 flight stipend to help cover the cost of airfare. Keep in mind that if your flight is more than $1,200, you would need to make up the difference, as we only cover up to $1,200. For students that are going to be enrolled in university insurance, the USHIP insurance, these do remain on your account until you opt out of the insurance. So if you are covered under your parents, you can indicate that, and we would remove those charges. But if you're an Odyssey student, USHIP is completely covered. So even if you decide not to opt out or you're covered under your parents, it really won't matter one way or the other. We would cover that cost. And then we do take special circumstances into consideration. Special circumstances essentially is anything that's outside of the control of a family that could potentially impact the ability to contribute towards their education. Most popular ones, of course, are job loss, significant loss to household income, a one-time non-reoccurring inflation of income, and that can include bonuses, exceptionally large amounts of overtime worked, lottery winnings. Changes in parent marital status, so if parents are becoming separated, divorced, or if a parent has passed away. Significant medical costs that have been paid outside of insurance, so if you're having to pay a lot even after your insurance is paid out, or financial burdens due to natural disasters. If any of these or other instances of things that are outside of the control of your family befall you, please do reach out to our office. We can look at latest and greatest information. So, for example, for this year, if you want to provide us your 2020 taxes, if those are more indicative of your family's finances, we can look at that. For special circumstances, we do have a form that is available on our website. You can complete that form and submit supporting documentation. So if there was a job loss, a letter from an employer letting us know that you had been separated from that position, examples of unemployment benefits received, if there's a change in parent marital status, a divorce, separation agreement, or financial burden, again, due to natural disasters, a letter from an insurance company explaining that a storm had damaged your home, and then we can reevaluate your financial aid eligibility. So some helpful links, of course, there's studentaid.ed.gov is the most popular. FSA ID is used to sign both the FAFSA and parent and student loan applications. We do encourage students to look for outside scholarships via fastweb.com, other scholarship search agencies. Keeping in mind that the FAFSA, FSAID, scholarship searches, everything should always be free. You should never have to pay for any sort of financial aid product. Illinois Students Assistance Commission at isac.org is if you're an Illinois student and wanted to check that out. That gives an overview of the MAP program. And then, of course, our financial aid homepage and student employment homepage are both excellent resources if you have questions about financial aid or student employment process. And then, of course, you can contact us. When we are physically on campus, we are located on the third floor of the Walker Museum building. Our financial aid email address is college-aid@uchicago.edu, and that is monitored throughout the day. So if you do have any questions or concerns, please do feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help assist with application inquiries, special circumstance review, and then any general question that you may have. Thank you for taking your time today to watch this presentation, and we wish you the best of luck and enjoyment here at the University of Chicago.